I welcome you to this special show on Sunset TV, Rashtra Nirman One Step Higher. I am Suman Arora. In this program, we'll uncover how our premier institutions can empower students and young professionals to become leaders, innovators and change makers, preparing them with the tools to tackle the challenges of the modern world and be a part of India's growth story based on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision of the Viksit Bharat at 2047. Today, we delve into the vital role that the premier policy think tank of our country, NITI AAYOG, plays in shaping not just individual lives, but the very fabric of our nation. Join us as we celebrate the power of education and its profound impact on nation building. Together, let's explore how investing in learning today creates a stronger and more resilient society tomorrow. We are going to have a very informative session today with our distinguished guest who is joining us on this special broadcast. I am pleased to welcome Mr. Suman Bery, the Vice Chairperson of NITI AAYOG. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. I welcome you to Sunset TV.
Well, it's a great pleasure and privilege to be on this channel. I watch Sunset TV a great deal when Parliament is on, but also for your special program, so it's an honor to be here.
Before we take this conversation forward, let's have a look at this report first.
India's NITI AAYOG, or the National Institution for Transforming India, stands at the forefront of policy innovation and economic transformation. Established on 1st of January 2015, NITI AAYOG replaced the decades-old Planning Commission, marking a decisive shift towards a more participative and collaborative approach to governance. Guided by the vision of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, NITI AAYOG serves as the government's policy think tank, fostering cooperative federalism by engaging with states and union territories to ensure India's holistic development. With a focus on long-term strategic planning, NITI AAYOG has been pivotal in advancing critical initiatives like Digital India, Aspirational Districts Program and Atal Innovation Mission. These programs aim to bridge social and economic gaps, empower grassroots governance and fuel India's entrepreneurial spirit. NITI AAYOG also spearheads policy frameworks in areas like healthcare, education, infrastructure and technology adoption, ensuring India remains a critical player in the global economy. With its emphasis on data-driven policy making, NITI AAYOG releases comprehensive reports, including the SDG India Index, helping monitor and guide India's progress towards the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. As India marches ahead in the 21st century, NITI AAYOG remains a pillar of innovation, collaboration and transformation, shaping the nation's destiny and ensuring inclusive growth for all.
Sir, NITI AAYOG's main role is to serve as a policy think tank, providing strategic direction and technical guidance to the government. So, what is the broader vision of the organization and its role in advancing India's socio-economic landscape?
Well, let me indicate that I'm Vice Chairman and Prime Minister Modi is the Chairman. And in that sense, we exist to realize his government's ambition. As you know, the same building used to house the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission worked very much through 5-year plans. NITI AAYOG has done various medium-term kind of vision exercises in the past, but I would say since I got here in May of 2022, really we have been working with other parts of government to try and think through what it means to be Viksit Bharat by 2047.
So, as the Vice Chairperson of NITI AAYOG, your leadership has had a profound impact on policy decisions. How your academic background and career experiences have polished your approach towards policy making, especially in education and skill development?
I think there is a difference between being a policy commentator and being a policy maker. And from that point of view, I consider myself only to be in a policy role since I came to NITI AAYOG. Before this, I was in an advisory capacity. But I would say that in many ways, the start of my journey was at the post-graduation level when I went to a 2-year master's program abroad at Princeton University, but there are similar programs here, in what was called public affairs. Since then, I have worked largely in the knowledge or the public sector, but I did have 4 years as the chief economist of Royal Dutch Shell. And so I would say that what was very important to me were my 2 years of policy education. But I started off in the World Bank, and the World Bank is a very good laboratory or training school for understanding the world of policy.
Right. So you are a development economist. What do you think are the key challenges that are facing Indian universities and educational institutions in providing our students for the future job markets, especially in emerging areas like AI, data science, and sustainable development?
Let me draw a distinction between diploma institutions like business schools, like engineering colleges, medical colleges, and universities, particularly those who come under the UGC, who are allowed to give degrees, because I think the situation is quite varied and quite different. So I think one of the big successes of India has been at the state level and to some extent at the central level through the IITs to respond to demand through the enormous expansion in engineering colleges. Now, these are diploma-giving institutions, even medical colleges. And as a consequence, they have been responsive to demand. Now, universities, I think, come now in 3 or 4 categories, and I would make the point that education as such, and particularly state universities, these are all subject to, they're within the decision making of the state. So the state, individual states have an important role to play. So I would say that leading central universities, the IITs, are doing a very good job. I would say that the issue is more in the state universities, where there has tended not to be a research culture, but there needs to be. And a lot of these state universities are under-resourced. And we at NITI AAYOG, under my colleague Dr. V.K. Saraswat, have been engaging with universities at the state level because that's obviously where the large proportion of graduates are going to be, to impart a research culture. Now, what your questions on AI, etc., are partly about research, but also partly about teaching. And I think the important point is that to keep afresh with in the curriculum, I think faculty also have to be doing research, otherwise it's just book learning.
Yeah, but strategic direction is being provided by NITI AAYOG to states also?
Well, at their request. I mean, each state is a, if you like, a sovereign entity or a self-contained entity. They look to their chief minister for political guidance. But yes, we work closely with states through something called a state support mission, which is funded by the union government. We also have strong relationships with the chief secretaries of states. But in the education area, I think we are still in the process of developing relationships with the state universities.
Right. So as India moves towards a knowledge-based economy, what should be the role of higher education institutions in fostering entrepreneurial mindsets among students?
Let me first say that under the leadership of our Chairman, Prime Minister Modi, India has had something that we call the Atal Innovation Mission.
Right.
And that operates at two levels. It operates at the school level, and it also operates at the entrepreneurial level. At the school level, we have, I think something like 10,000 Atal tinkering labs, which are designed to encourage secondary school students to, as they say, tinker, get a scientific interest and experiment, and this has been extremely successful. I've been and seen some of these ourselves, with the idea that science, should be fun. It shouldn't be, But more importantly, we have a network of Atal incubation centers whose emphasis is very much to incubate entrepreneurs, and that has been, that's throughout the country, and so that is an important laboratory for how to inculcate entrepreneurship. But you have also been asking about universities.
Yes.
I think there is an important transformation that the Prime Minister wishes to happen, that up till now universities have really, the degree granting universities, particularly in arts, but to some extent in sciences, have dedicated themselves to preparing students for government jobs, because that's the demand. Everybody wants a government job. I think Prime Minister is rightly saying that, look, the future is going to be about entrepreneurship, about much more unstructured kind of job market, partly because of AI.
Startups are also being encouraged by the Prime Minister.
Yes, that's right, so I think our universities are only slowly, in a sense, and they have to respond to what their students want, are only slowly making the change towards preparing people for an entrepreneurial future. And let me make one important point, which is we talk about jobs, and by jobs people typically mean jobs in firms, but the reality in India is that much of the employment is in our MSMEs, what is called the informal sector, and we have a very large, particularly amongst women, category of self-employed, and so I like personally to use the term livelihoods rather than jobs, because jobs is, the idea that you go to a fixed place and, if you can get something like that, but that is that's not what the future world of work is going to be anywhere in the world.
Yes. So there is a growing demand for interdisciplinary learning and innovation. Like, what steps can our universities or educational institutions take to ensure that our students are well prepared for the future, especially in the rapidly changing world scenario?
The question of, in the 21st century, whether this should come from the university or whether it comes from natural curiosity, I think is an open question. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that the new generation, the generation of Amrit Kal, actually gets its stimulus from university, but also from social media, from face-to-face, personal interaction. And actually I find that at all levels of society, because we are a conversational culture, people tend to be quite aware of what's going on around them politically, socially, economically. So I wouldn't put that burden only on universities. I think the role of universities should really be to teach well and to create a research culture. Yes, there are interdisciplinary programs. So, for example, I think a private university like the Azim Premji University in Bangalore particularly focuses on interdisciplinary approaches for problem solving in in India's social sectors. So there is a role for that, I think. But I would say that doing a better job of teaching the core subject for until the postgraduate level is probably just as important in raising the standards of the teaching.
Right, sir. So, Honorable Prime Minister has been laying a lot of focus on quality education and skill development and capacity building, and that too also in rural areas and underserved regions of the country. Could you share something about that?
Well, again, the way this works is that the government has national programs, for example, for particularly vulnerable tribal groups and other there are very substantial scholarship programs as well for not only tribals but more broadly. So these are centrally sponsored schemes. Now it's up to the state, the individual states, to kind of implement these, and depending on the state there is and depending on the scheme, because there are also central sector schemes where the government assumes the entire fiscal burden. These are schemes that exist, but it is a mistake to think that all of the pressure needs to be on providing the opportunity. A lot also depends on the individual, their immediate family and their employment opportunities, because the fact of the matter is that in the truly as it were disadvantaged parts of the country, the income that children bring home or the adolescent bring home is important to the family. So I think that the decision to continue with education is also an economic decision. It's not only a question of the right facilities, but I would say that the big achievement of this government since it's been in power has been to attain almost 100% enrollment ratio at the primary level, high levels of enrollment at both the secondary and the university, tertiary level. So there is a great deal that's happening, which by the scale of it is necessarily inclusive. So I'm saying that the broad thrust of policy has been inclusive, and then there are specific programs for the backward regions and yeah.
So it's good that the government is doing so much, and the students also have to make their own efforts and remain curious and work hard so far as learning is concerned. So in today's world, internships and real world experience hands-on projects are very important. Is NITI Aayog offering any internships or any training programs, especially in the areas which align with India's development goals like governance, sustainable development, policy, research, public service?
Well, NITI itself, yes, has a continuing internship program which is completely transparent. It's on our website, and what it consists of is people who are selected being assigned to our so-called verticals. As with any internship program, you learn by in a sense, being in the room and sometimes being given specific assignments. We also have so-called young professionals who are recruited for 2 years, but the NITI internship program actually also applies at the undergraduate level. The young professional program is at the postgraduate level, and that's a fixed assignment. It's not an internship. I do want to make one important point, because as you know, the Prime Minister in the last budget announced an extremely ambitious program for internship in the 500 leading corporations across a variety of sectors, which is that corporations need to have a culture, or organizations need to have a culture to use interns well. Okay? Because I spent a long time, almost 30 years, living in the United States, and I would say what I learned there was the whole society believes in internships. And what is the deal or the bargain? The bargain is that you train somebody in return from them working extremely hard. Whereas when I first came to India, the reaction I tended to get in my first institution was, look, why should I bother to train somebody, who knows relatively little? What's in it for me? So it's almost like a social contract that India needs to have with its youth at the corporate level, and which is that, there's nothing more distressing than a youngster who comes full of hope and optimism and is just left to have chai and sit. So, this is a big cultural change. I would say that one set of societies that does this well are the Northern Europeans, because their apprenticeship schemes, which are somewhat different from internship schemes, are very well integrated into the work culture of the receiving organizations.
Yes.
And that's really what you want.
Yes. So given your extensive experience with the global institutions and think tanks, and you have been working in economics and international development and policy making. So what would be your suggestion to the youngsters? What has been your career journey, whether there was a role of internships or any mentorship, anything, what has been your career path that our students of today can learn from?
This stuff is expensive, but it's certainly my understanding that postgraduate master's programs, professional master's programs, those which are 2-year programs at business schools, at public policy schools, and this is why 2 years is more important than 1 year, they actively try and place their students in the summer or in between 2 years to get work experience. And in the US, this particularly in business schools, this is a critical way of future employers getting a sense of the capabilities. So it's like an extended internship, but with a view to employment. In my own case, I did have an internship, but it was not with a view to employment, but it was, even though my graduate school was in the US, it was in India, in a part of Gujarat, Talala district, looking at something which again, is very important to me now, which was district level planning. So yes, that was all part of the formative experience. But what I would say is more important is that even though I had only 2 years of academic training, I think having in economics a respect for economic theory and understanding what academics are saying, even if you're going to be a practitioner, is quite important. And I think it's very important to recognize, even in government service, IAS officers, they are not using the skills, but the number of them who have been at IITs, etc. So I think a solid educational foundation is important. I think the second point I would make is that you need a background in theory to structure a problem, but then you need good communication skills, because the policy maker, which perhaps I would consider myself now, doesn't want the as it were all the theoretical background, but he needs to know that the problem has been examined from various ends, but he wants to know, or she wants to know, what to do. And the final point I would make is that in democratic politics, probably in politics under all systems, people are not only interested in the right thing to do, they're interested also in tactics. So how do you make things acceptable? And also, who is going to get hurt? Because there are often reasons why things don't happen, because there are existing lobbies, existing constituencies. And I think that there's an obligation to try and do that next level of analysis to find out, okay, the society will gain, but some people will be hurt. What are we going to do about them? So that's the whole package, I would say, that, sort of a lifetime in working in this area, those have been some of my conclusions.
So one last question. What message what message would you like to give to the parents of students, because the parents are also co-navigating their children's education and career plans. So what should they do? What should they have in their mind to ensure that their children are well prepared for the dynamic world?
Well, I'm not only a father but also a grandfather, and I think the first point is trust your children. Because they see a world that you can't see. And the world of India today is already much more varied than the world I knew or the world they knew. A lot of the more exotic, if you like, activities, everything from being a musician to being to being in the movies, etc., these are not considered respectable, but they are gaming. These are the industries of the future. And their children will become aware of these opportunities well before they are. So that's what I mean by trust your children, but don't let them go berserk. I mean, I think a strong foundation for India is the family and respect for elders, etc. But that should not become a straitjacket.
Right, sir. All good things come to an end. We have come to the end of this session. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us today. It has been a personal delight to hear such invaluable insights from you.
We are all working for the youth of this country. They are the basis of our Amrit Kal, and for Sansad TV to have given me this platform to address the youth of this country, I consider a great privilege and honor. So I need to thank you and your organization.
The key takeaway is collaboration between educational institutions and industries can unlock innovation, nurture talents, and drive progress. Students need to remain curious and work hard, and industries are to come forward and mentor them. Viewers, hope you enjoyed the show. Until next time, stay motivated and keep learning. Thank you for watching.
To watch more programs of Sansad TV, subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to like and share them.